All right, so now that we've got our posts pretty much set up and working how we want, I want to talk about one extra thing that you may or may not decide to include in different themes that you build, and that is working with post formats. So in this one, among other things that we're going to do, we're going to look at how we could split out displaying different post formats using different template includes. And to do that, we're going to use the get template part, which we saw before, but a new function as well called get post format. So let's talk a little bit about what post formats are and then transition into what we could do with them in our themes. So we start off over here with the documentation for post formats, and basically they're used for presenting posts in a certain format and style. It could be said that they're semantic, but really the idea is so that themes can display different types of posts differently. And if we come down to the supported formats, we could see an aside styled without a title, similar to a Facebook note, gallery of images, a link to another site, and you could either include the link directly or just a link, an image, a single image that will be used, a quote for a quotation, status update similar to Twitter, video is a single video, audio is going to be an audio file, and chat is a chat transcript laid out like this. So you don't need to do this. By default, you could just use what are called standard posts, and that's no post format used. And I'd say that this feature of WordPress has had an interesting history. Some folks find it really popular for those kind of Tumblr style themes. Other folks feel, oh, we should just get rid of it completely from WordPress, but they're there. So let's look at how we could work with them. Now, the most important function to know about is get post format, and this is going to take either an integer or an object with the post ID or the post itself. So when we enter this in here, what we're going to be able to do is get the post format back. Now we could see here, this is jumping ahead to the get template part a little bit. So I just want to implement this in our code and see what we get, and then we'll build up and work from there. So the first thing I have to mention is that I actually had a typo here. Post format here is actually supposed to be post formats, plural with a hyphen. So in your functions.php, maybe you got this when I first did it, but if not, go ahead and fix that. So the way that you could test this is working is by coming into a post, and on the side you should see the post formats. So these are the ones we just saw. Again, if your theme has it disabled, so if I come back into my functions.php and I comment this out, notice that then we no longer have access to them. So that theme is affecting something on the back end there. And likewise, if we were to remove some of these and only do certain ones, then we would only see those options there. So that's probably a smart idea. If you are going to use them, don't throw in all of them because it may confuse your users and you have to code for all of them to make something happen. So like you may decide, okay, they're using galleries a lot and they're using videos a lot. So we'll enable those two, and maybe image as well and audio just in case they throw a podcast in. So if it's a really media rich site, you could do that. And this would allow you to not use categories, like not have a category for gallery and video and image, which doesn't really make a lot of sense unless that is how you're organizing your categories, but usually they're around content and not type. Not always the case, but okay, so that's just post formats at a high level. Let's come in now to our single.php. Again, this is controlling our blog posts, and then come into our content because that has our actual loop in it. And then right here above the title, I'm going to echo out get post format. And by itself won't do anything, so we actually need to pass in the post ID. One of the easiest ways to grab the post ID is just post, which is made available to us in the loop, and then the ID object of it. So let's go ahead and run this and see what it does. So if we come to our site now and come into the blog, you'll notice that for a lot of these posts, they're not going to have anything. And so you've got to kind of bounce around and scroll around till you find some that actually have them. But if you have categories in the side, this could help. So let's jump into video, okay? And above post format video, and notice that it's telling us that this is the post format That's customizable, something you could do later. Notice that we have video displaying there. So any of them that are videos are going to show up as that. Let's come into chat. Bad example, that one's looking silly because we'll come back to and make that customized later. Let's use gallery. Okay. Notice that we have a gallery category, but tiled gallery isn't showing the post status there, or the post format. So let's come into our posts and find that tiled gallery. Again, if you're using the same dummy content I am, which I suggested, then you will have the same stuff and be able to follow along. So let's set it to gallery, update it, and then refresh again. And notice that that one's set to gallery, but this one, which had this category, but not the post format, doesn't have gallery. So displaying that there isn't much fun. Let me show you one thing before we break this into separate templates. And that's a clever little trick you could use using dash icons. Dash icons are icons that are generated using CSS and HTML. So we could simply paste this HTML in, and WordPress automatically loads the CSS on our page to use dash icons. So they're super easy to use. And one of the great things about them, if I come into the video one, is notice the name of this, dash icons format video. Well, guess what? They have formats for all of the different post formats, and they match exactly what we're going to be echoing out here. So that's where we could use this post format function to do some cool stuff. So let me copy this HTML, and I'm going to bring that into my code here, into my content.php, and paste that in. However, instead of hard coding in gallery to appear, I'm going to paste in the echo get post format with post ID. And what that will do is dynamically display the correct word here that will then load into the dash icon. So this is pretty crazy. We have a CSS class that we're putting PHP into and getting some custom value from it. But this is just showing some of the flexibility that this get post format can bring. So now if we come back over to our sites, we're seeing these cool dash icons instead. And if I come down into video, notice that those are appearing as well. So super handy, very nice little trick. I mean, these are not CSS styled too great, but at this point it's fine for us. And we could go on with looking at what we want to do next. Okay, so what we want to do next is, instead of using the same content.php for every single one of our different post formats, we could do something different in our single.php file. And this is something really common, whether you use it or not. I want to just show you so that you'll understand how it works. And what we're going to do is get template part content, and where we would normally put the hyphen for the next value, we're going to simply put get post format. And what this will do is automatically figure out if this is a gallery post and look for content-gallery. If it doesn't find it, it'll use content as a backup. So let's take a look at this with one of these examples, and we'll just use gallery as the example here. So I'm going to come into my content.php. I'm going to do a save as and save it as content-gallery. We could still leave this up here, and I'll just put a little message. Enjoy this gallery post. Okay. So this is what's going to allow us to distinguish that we are inside of content gallery. And now this is not probably how you would want to style it. You could do it any sort of different ways. And maybe we'll also take out the author. Maybe we'll say that for someone posts a gallery, it's not really important who it was, but we still want comments enabled, so we'll leave them. Now we have a little bit of difference between the two of these. Let's go ahead and test out if it works. Okay, so in order to really test if this works, we're going to have to find one of our gallery posts. So we'll come into gallery. And now tile gallery didn't have it by default, but we went ahead and added it. And so notice that we're still on a category listing page. So that is actually using the index.php, and it's not going to show the post type that we want. We'll get to how to make that work later, but what you'll have to do to view if this is working is come into your tiled gallery for now and just click that permalink. And now you can see that we say, enjoy this gallery post. Now, if you were being a creative theme developer, you would do a lot more styling than just that. And you could give some consideration to how should these different post formats be styled. Again, if you come to this page, it kind of talks about what the expectations are for each one. So you could work around that. And sometimes it might just be some CSS that you want to display or something like that that will give the effect. Sometimes it will be completely different code. Now, I also want to point out that the body class will also give you a single format gallery or video, etc. So let's say you didn't want to customize a whole new template. You just wanted to use content.php for everything, but you wanted to style it differently. You would have that option here. Now, coming back in the code, I do realize I forgot this when we first added it. So let's make sure that we're making this translatable. And then that's really it, what we want to look at for get post format. Now, I'm not going to create a different one for each one, but if you were using this feature, you should see now how this works. And even if you were only using one or two, having this in here, if it isn't available, it will just fall back to the normal one. So that's great. And in our index.php, remember, this is still being used as our fallback. If we wanted to, what we could do is we could even add that here. And then if we were come back to our site and go into a category page, remember the category page is using index.php and we refreshed it. Notice that now it would be pulling this into the loop. So whether it's singular or in the loop, that's going to work either way. Okay, so at this point, here's what I want you to do. Go into your single.php and add this get post format. And then create at least one custom post format template and change it up a little bit. Whatever you decide is appropriate, even if it's just you want to play around. If you want to play around with the dash icons and do something that way, if you want to style them differently. And I'd suggest taking a look maybe at the WordPress 2013 theme, which I've got a demo here. This is actually the WordPress.com one, but it's got a nice picture here of how it displays things differently. So see, you can see this is a gallery type. This is like just a little status update. This is a quote. This is an audio file. And notice they're styling these each differently. And this is when it's really worth it. And this is when it's really attractive and helpful to do. So if you're building something like that or like that functionality, then go ahead and play around with that. Of course, build what we've done in our theme just so you have a firm grasp on how it works. And then with your own project, try taking it a little bit further. Decide what post formats would work well for that project, and then build out some templates, add a little styling, take some time to play around and build it out so you really get comfortable with what's there. And once you know this, when you see projects in the future, you're going to be thinking in the back of your head somewhere, oh, you know, we could throw in post formats for that. That might look really nice or be good functionality or pick. Or you might decide, you know what, we're not going to use them at all. And then in that case, you could make the decision in your functions.php. You could just remove this entirely or comment it out if you decide, hey, we're not going to be using that. So that's what we have on post formats.